I already know which property I want and which markets I want. So that is already is a decision made for me. The way I manage the properties for the out-of-state properties, I have property managers that I keep in contact with. The one in Jacksonville, Orlando, I pretty manage those properties through text messages. But then again, those properties are already Class A in Class A neighborhoods, so the tenants are more easy to manage, like way easy to manage.
Welcome to the Real Estate and Financial Independence Podcast. I'm your host, Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this is a show all about helping you get out of the financial grind so you can do more of what matters. Whether you're a long-time listener or a first-time listener, thank you for being back for another episode. The title of today's episode is How to Successfully Invest in Real Estate While Working a Full-Time Job. This is another in my Best of Coach Carson podcast series where I'm sharing with you from the archive of the podcast the most downloaded episodes from the past that people really enjoyed. And this one is the number 3 most downloaded episode of all time. And it's an interview with someone named Jay Medina. Jay has a full-time job as an air traffic controller. So of all things, he definitely can't be paying attention to anything else while he's working his job to make sure all the airplanes stay where they're supposed to in the air. And Jay's a fascinating guy. He was originally born in Puerto Rico. He moved to the mainland of the United States and has been successful in his career, makes a lot of money, but he's also had just a really interesting insight and wisdom and philosophy around investing, not only with real estate investing, but also with where do you put your money and how do you save your money and how do you balance between different types of investments. So if you are a full-time employee or somebody who is busy with other things and you want to learn how do you invest your money well, while doing all those things, this is a great episode for you. Enjoy. Hey, Jay, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Very nice. And nice to be here, Coach.
I've been looking forward to this. We've connected online on Instagram. I found your account and we've connected there and done an Instagram live once. And I've just enjoyed the information that you provide and the motivation you provide through your Instagram account. And I just thought it would be fun to connect and share with people some of your story of working a full-time job and also investing not only in real estate, but in other things. So I'm hoping we can jump into that. And I think a good place to start, Jay, would if you just let people know a little bit more about you, about your story and where you're from, and then we can get into some of the specifics of real estate and other investing as well.
Sure. Thanks, Coach, for having me actually here. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna enjoy this conversation. I'm from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I'm 42 years old. I'm married with my beautiful wife. She's 42 years old. And something interesting, actually, our birthday, both of our birthdays is in October. So we're right there, 42 years old. I have 2 boys, 5 and 2. So I'm starting, I have a young family. I'm an air traffic controller, as you already know, and I'm pretty sure, people that follow me on Instagram, they know. Some people think, air traffic control is the guy that we were talking offline is with the lights in the ramp, go here. But there is so much into air traffic control that goes, and it's a really, really interesting job. And so I moved to the States when my wife, she actually got a job here in the Jacksonville, Florida area, which this is where I live. So I moved from Puerto Rico here. And here I am. I have been investing in real estate since 2006.
Right. Well, I'm curious. So you have a full-time job. You're an air traffic controller, which obviously is like if there's any profession where you have to focus on what you're doing during your day job and not do stuff on the side, like that's it, right? Because you've got airplanes going and all however many miles per hour airplanes go, and so like you can't be sitting there on your phone like looking at real estate properties, and yet on the side, you have done an excellent job of finding properties, of investing. And so I guess I want to take a step back there and say, what motivated you? You're working your job, you're making a good income to try to start investing and maybe achieving some kind of financial goals. So talk to me about that. What were some of your motivations there?
Yeah, of course. When I'm in my job, I have to be really focused. I cannot have my phone, is prohibited because, I cannot be talking to you in the phone and, telling a pilot to climb or descend. But everything started, of course, I'm pretty sure the majority of the people, when they are young, they see these pictures of Porsche, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and all that stuff. And I was like, man, I want to be rich, And of course, I thought that I wanted it to be rich, but what I actually wanted it was to spend a lot of money. So throughout the time, I have learned, that you actually have to be in love with the process, because the process is what's going to change you. So I decided to jump in real estate because I start looking online, reading books and all that stuff, and I start reading like all these generational wealth. Everybody had real estate. So I was like, man, I'm going to get into real estate. Then I saw, people online on that stuff doing the flipping and all that stuff. And I got a $50,000 check. I was like, wow. But of course, those sometimes are marketing, traps that get you. But once I learned more and more about real estate, I learned that it's actually a really powerful tool to build wealth, because you don't only have like the cash flow, the income, you have the equity, the tax benefits. I can argue that maybe sometimes a mortgage is an asset. For example, right now, that's the cheapest asset out there that you can find. But yeah, that's how everything started for me in the real estate. Trying to be a millionaire and not involved in the process, and then everything went backwards, and actually I fall in love with the process more than actually being a millionaire. But of course, the process and the real estate is going to get me to my end goal, which is financial abundance and financial freedom.
I love that. I've noticed on your Instagram account, you use this word financial abundance as a goal, as something you're aspiring to. And I talk on this show a lot about financial independence and not having to work a job if you don't want to, although a lot of people still work a job, and doing what matters with your time and having control of your time. So I'm interested what financial abundance means to you and how that is distinguished from maybe financial independence.
Yeah, for example, like in your blog, right? That I have learned a ton in your blog. Like in your blog, you have like different wealth stages. So there is a like different financial independence or freedom, whatever you want to call it, stages. And you got financial stability when you get out of debt. Then you got some financial independence, and then for me, financial abundance. Financial abundance comes when you don't have to work a day ever in your life, and you're going to have plenty of money, to actually give and help other people, or will have plenty of money to do whatever you like. That's what I mean by financial abundance. Not thinking or worrying about money. It's not going to matter what's going to happen, in the country, in politics or whatever. You're going to be safe, and you're going to have enough to survive.
So it's more than just a base level of survival. It's more of a kind of an excess where not only for things that you enjoy, little luxuries, which are nice, but also giving and sharing and being able to be abundant with your money and generous with your money. Do you, and I know, knowing that you're a spreadsheet person like I am, and we love kind of nerding out on numbers, do you think about that as a quantitative thing? Do you look at a certain amount and you don't have to share the exact numbers if you weren't comfortable, but do you think about financial abundance in terms of I've reached a certain net worth, I've reached a certain amount of income? How would you recommend people think about that?
I think about it in a few ways. Yes, I think of a number, like a net worth, and how much cash flow or dividends that net worth is going to spit, right? Because the ultimate goal is to live from the cash flow or the dividends and not touch ever your principal. That's the goal. So I think of it in that way, and also think of it like doing what matters. I think of it also about, like, for example, health, because if you don't have health, then you cannot enjoy this money. I think about it in a way that how I am going to pass this wealth to my next generation, my boys or my grandkids or anything like that. So I'm already thinking 20 years ahead. So that's the way I think about it, like in a number, in a generational perspective, and actually in health, because it's like they're saying 70s is the new 60s. And with all, the technology, the science and all that stuff, people are living longer. You're going to retire. For example, me as an air traffic controller, since it's a very stressful job, I can retire I'm going to be eligible to retire at 49 years old. I'm going to be too young. So I'm going to live 30 more years, and what I'm going to do, So So that's the way I think about it. Abundance in everything.
Like it. So we've got a clear vision. Financial abundance is where you're trying to go. You can try to put a number on it, but you're also sounds like you try to think about the story and what you're going to do with your life and how that money is going to help you do those things. So I love that. You mentioned earlier the process. So before we even get into the real estate, because I want to talk about some of your portfolio and how you've invested. There's some great insights that you've had there. Let's talk about just from a purely financial standpoint, when you started studying this and learning how to take this money you're saving from your job or that you hope to save from your job and you're going to try to turn that into financial abundance, were there any fundamentals or maybe a process that you identified that, like, hey, here's some of the key things that I've got to do, otherwise I'm not going to be able to achieve financial abundance?
Yeah, when I started learning about the whole thing about money and all that stuff, there's a few things that came to mind, like mindset. You have to have the right mindset. You have to be clear. The word clarity sometimes is not used that the way it should be used, but you need to have clarity. What do you want to do with your money? Because it's not about getting money and having a $10 million net worth, $12 million net worth. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I want it, but then what? So I can assure you, that once you reach a goal, yes, you feel rich enough that then the question becomes, now what? So the process before getting into real estate and all that stuff for me was like mindset. What do I want to do with my money? How I'm going to actually transfer this money to the next generation? How can I help others in the things that I actually care about? So that's for me, that was like the game changer, have clarity in life, and be mature with the money, because there is a saying that money goes where it's treated best.
So you have a mindset about, what you're going to do with the money, have a motivation, have a clarity. You actually call your Instagram channel is called Being Determined. So I'm wondering, how does that, that to me is says that's a lot of what your philosophy is. Like, what does that mean to you why is that important to your approach?
Yeah, I picked the name because that's pretty much who I am. When I get into something, I am determined to actually learn it and learn it the right way and learn it, grasp it. So not only you have to learn it, you have to be consistent. You have to have discipline. You have to do a daily actions, daily decisions to get you there. So you have to be determined, because one of the things that sometimes people are lacking these days that I have seen is like some mental toughness. They get, blown away like from left to right just because of simple thing or something. And I get it. There's some legit issues, that a person can go through. But if you want to get somewhere, you have to actually be determined and, to get there.
Yeah, having it on a spreadsheet and having a plan on a spreadsheet and then actually implementing it in real life, the gap between that intellectual concept and that actual reality is sometimes just grit and determination and pushing through it, right?
Oh yeah, it's hard, So to get from point A to point B is hard, and takes sometimes you are your own worst enemy, and sometimes you are your own worst opponent. That's the way I see it.
I really like the word determined because if there's any metaphor that I give people for the journey to financial independence, it's much more like an ultra marathon. It's this long race that is pretty much a battle of how long you're willing to stick with this thing and get knocked off and get back up, get knocked off and get back up. And I played sports in the past. I loved football and I still play basketball. And I enjoy the metaphor of sports. I enjoy playing it physically. But to me, one of the best lessons from sports is that you have this goal, you have a championship goal, you want to achieve something, financial independence, financial abundance. It's going to take a bunch of day-to-day kind of nitty-gritty, not that fun sometimes. Like when I played football, the games are fun, but we only played 11 or 12 games per year. But we had like 250 days a year where you're training and working out and in the hot sun. And that's really that's more what this is like. And so you mentioned you got to love the process. You got to love the day-to-day things that you do to build wealth. So what are some of those things? What are some of the things that maybe people miss some of those small details that will make a big difference that you need to be doing day to day with your money?
It's, there is two school of thoughts on this. Like there is one school of thought that says like you don't have to pay attention on the small things like our coffee. So there is that school of thought like a coffee is not gonna spending $1 in a coffee is not gonna break the bank. And there is the school of thought that says you don't have to worry, man. It's only a coffee. It's just $2, whatever. But the thing is like you have to. For example, I use Quicken, right? To put all my personal finances, I use Quicken. And Quicken gives you this report that throughout the years, how much you have spent, right? And once you go and see that report, like in 10 years, because I have been using Quicken since, I don't know, 2004. So when you have that data, which I ran it the other day, and I wonder how much I have spent in gasoline for my car. And I look at it was $35,000 in gas for the car. Okay. And now that I have two kids and my wife, now I have two cars, and then everything start multiplying. So, but those little things can add up. So if those little things do not bring any type of value to your life or doesn't add up to whatever you want to do, whatever goal you want to achieve, well, that has to go, or at least modify, or you have to look for some other ways. Of course, then you have the big stuff like housing, transportation, and all that stuff. Those have to be, managed as well, because you can lose more money. People talk about housing, buying versus rent and all that stuff, but you can lose more money in an asset allocation and fees than, buying a house. So that's the way I see it, the big and the small. What is it that is actually bringing value to your life and what is not?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I have a friend who's another podcaster, Paula Pant, who describes that in a similar way, where she says you can afford anything, but you can't afford everything. Like you can afford to buy a big boat if you want to, but you can't do that and have the Ferrari and have the house and have you're gonna have to make some choices at some point. I think that's what I'm hearing from you, and I really agree with, is that money is not that special in and of itself, but it does represent our values. It represents how we spend, what's important to us, and if you value flexibility and freedom and financial independence, there are going to be some sacrifices at some point. That doesn't mean you have to not have a coffee every day if that's what you really enjoy. But there's going to have to be some cutting somewhere. Like you've got to choose what's important to you. And for me, this is just a personal choice. It's just like cars have not been something that really mattered that much to me. I like a car that's safe, that gets my family from point A to point B, that has good gas mileage. So I drive 5 to 10 year old Toyotas. That's my Toyota Avalon that I bought from a family member. We just got another Toyota brand kind of car that's used, and we just get a lot of value out of that. Whereas some people want to have a different car and a nicer car. That's just not our thing. So that saved us a ton of money. I mean, if I bought a $30,000 car 10 years ago, that would have been $25,000 that I wouldn't have been able to spend investing in real estate and doing other things and having independence. So that's just one example. Everybody's got to make their own choice, but I like that you focus on that, is that those little things matter. You got to pay attention to them. You got to track them. You got to think about them.
Exactly. Yes. So let me put it in perspective, and I'll go more into my story. That way we can connect more with your listeners. For example, if this is no secret, if you Google air traffic control, you're going to see that it is a high-paying job. So I have a high-paying job. A lot of people are going to say, well, that is easy for you. You can buy real estate. Wait a minute, I can use that money and spend it all. I can go buy a Porsche right now if I want to. I don't have a Porsche. I drive a 2015 Toyota Camry because I have a purpose. I have clarity. I know where I want to go, and I value more flexibility, security for my family, and things that I want to do with my wife, like travel. For example, another piece of my story is like my wife. She was, I will not say a big spender, but she was a spender. And of course, before we got married, we had the money conversation. And she said, no, when I retire, I want to travel. I want to, all that stuff. She was dreaming. I was like, well, that is great. So how do we get there? Because if we spend it all, I mean, we're not going to get there. It's not going to happen by magic. So then that clicked with her. She was like, yeah, we will have to make some changes for actually get there. Because of course I want to travel, and if I want to go eventually in a luxurious cruise, yeah, of course, but it's not going to happen by magic.
Yeah. So it's being deliberate, thinking from the end. And what I've found is that you don't have, a lot of people give me this pushback when I talk about saving a lot of money and have a big savings rate. They're like, well, you're just deferring your life. Like, you're not going to enjoy your life now, and you're going to have this enjoyment on a cruise when you're 20 years from now. And my point always to them is like, spending a lot of money now, like you've been sold these goods, that spending money now is what makes you happy. And it's actually been a learning lesson for me. Like when you force yourself, you say, here's my budget. Here's how much I'm going to spend. I'm going to spend lavishly on these things, but I don't have much money left for all these others. So I'm going to have to drive a used car. When you start giving yourself those restraints, you get creative and having fun and enjoying life. Like, we have wonderful meals at our house, but we make a lot of them ourselves. We love eating out, and as we've made more money, we eat out more and more and more, but it gives you a creative restraint. And, we're creative people. Like, you can figure out ways to have fun and enjoy life without spending $200,000 a year. It's possible, I promise. And I don't feel like I've been deprived a day in my life. I've lived a very, obviously had a lot of benefits and a lot of things that have gone right for me as well. But just the message I want to give that I'm hearing from you, and that I want to echo as well, is that you do have to make choices, but this can be a happy ride. Like, this doesn't have to be like a life of deprivation. Yeah, it's fun.
Oh yeah, I love the ride. No. I love the ride, the ride, because I mean, money is not going to make you happy. Happy comes that, within yourself. You have to find happiness. You need to have a purpose, a meaning in life. So once you find that and you have clarity, I mean, you're going to find happiness. But money, I mean, it's not gonna make you happy. Of course, it's gonna make a lot of things are gonna be more easy to achieve and to buy. But just look. Do you remember Steve Jobs? So he couldn't cure his own cancer.
So we have this money. We're saving this money. We've got a plan. We're purposeful. Let's talk about what you do with that money, because I like that. A lot of what I've seen you talk about, Jay, is you have a diversification. You not only have real estate, you've got retirement accounts. Like, what's a general plan for people when they can think about when they're saving a bunch of money? Like, and if you know nothing about investing, what's a good approach or philosophy on what you can do with that money that you've worked so hard to set aside?
All right. So first of all, I mean, the way, I'm pretty sure the famous book, the seven habits of, I don't remember the whole title exactly. Stephen Covey. So I believe was the seventh habit that he said, start with the end on mind, right? And I'm trying to connect what we were talking with this. So the way I think about investing is I want to start with the end in mind. So I'm already, like I said before, I'm already thinking 20 years ahead. So I'm deploying my money that way. I invest, for example, in the stock market through index funds, and I have some individual stocks, which I consider a dividend portfolio that I'm creating. So that's the way I invest in the stock market. I invest in real estate, and I have cash. Those the only three assets that I have right now: stocks, real estate, and cash. So the question is, eventually I'm going to put more assets there. Yes, I will, because I want to be as diversified as possible. So the way I start with my money, to see if somebody can grasp it that doesn't know anything about investing, I see it like a flow. You have this flow. Where is that flow coming from? Well, my flow is coming from my savings. That's why I have a so high savings rate. It's really high. So all the money that is pumping is from my savings, because, like I said, I have a high paying job, which I can, feed from there. So from there, I deploy the money. I use tax advantage accounts. I use brokerage accounts, and I have the real estate and the cash. That's the way I actually start. And a good way to start for someone that doesn't know anything about investing, the best way, in my opinion, to start is if you have an employer tax advantage account, that's the easiest way to start because you get a match.
It's like a 401k or a 457 or a Roth IRA kind of account.
Exactly. That's the easiest way to start.
And do you, and I know, and for everybody, we're two investors who are just, we're practitioners. So we're, take all this advice and you run it by, if you have an advisor or somebody's helping you out. These are just principles that we both practice. And I'm trying to pick Jay's brain because he's a practitioner. He's doing this day in and day out. How do you max that? Do you think about the allocation of that money? So if you got a certain amount of money coming in from your job, do you try to max out your 401k first? And then whatever's left over, spend that in real estate or other outside your retirement accounts? Like how do you personally think about that?
In my position, right, I know that I'm already going to max out my tax advantage accounts, which is my 401k, my wife's 401k. I actually have to do a backdoor Roth IRA, right, because of my income. And I have a health savings accounts as well. So I already know that I am going to max that out because of my position. So that's done. Like I do it. And then the rest goes to the savings, and then I deploy it to the brokerage and to real estate. And I keep cash. That's the way I do it. For somebody that, doesn't know, there is so many school of thoughts, oh, max out your Roth IRA and all that stuff. But all that investing advice, which you should consult a professional, a financial professional, all that investing advice has to be put on context, because sometimes people say, oh, maxed out your 401k or maxed out your Roth IRA first. They take it as the gospel, but there is so much into it. You have to think about taxes. You have to think about when you're going to sell and what tax trigger that's going to is going to do in your life. So all that stuff, but you have to put it in context in your life.
Yeah, and in general, like if you're a high income earner, putting money in a 401k or some of these pre-tax accounts, it really makes sense because you're paying a large amount of taxes. Like, so you're saving potentially 30-40% of your money just right there. So that in itself is a return. That's why it's a smart thing to do. And if you have an employer who's matching that, then you're making even more. And so, I mean, I'm a big fan of retirement accounts. It makes sense. You do it. I get this question a lot though of, hey, I make less money. If I'm able to save $10,000-$15,000 per year, and I've got this 401k, I want to invest in real estate. I feel like they're competing with one another. Like I don't know which one to invest in. And I agree with you. It's really a difficult to paint the whole picture and say, yes, you should or shouldn't do this one way or the other, because you do have to have context. And part of the context that I wrote about in my Retire Early with Real Estate book was that it also depends on what your timeline is for actually leaving your job. Like if you were and I want to hear what you think about this too, Jay. If you were somebody who was staying in your job for 20 years, you're like, I'm going to have a 20-year plan. Putting in your 401k would make a lot of sense because you got a lot of time for it to compound. If you were somebody on the other hand who said 5 years from now, I'm done with my job. I'm going to go. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do something full time. And that's a lot of what I was. Like I started as an entrepreneur from the very beginning, getting out of college. I still put money in my 401k just because I was fortunate enough to have enough money, but I did make some choices a couple years early on where I put money in real estate and I didn't max out as much as I could have in all my various retirement accounts. And I did that because I wanted to live off that money sooner than later, 6 years from now. In a retirement account, you have to wait. Yeah, it's more difficult to get your money out of those accounts. So like in an ideal world, you do both. Like always, if you can do both. But there's going to be some of you who have different situations where, the orthodox thing is always put in the 401k, but it's not always the case. I mean, real estate is a tax advantaged account as well in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always the case. That's what I say. And sometimes people ask me through Instagram and all that stuff. You have to put it in context in your life. What's going on? What are you going to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Do you have a stable job? How's your health? What assets do you have? Do you have debt? So, I mean, it's an individual case every time. And the way I learn is I didn't learn from one book, because people ask me, what is the book that I need to read? Like, oh my God, give me the answer. It's like, I cannot give you the answer. I have read like 150 books on financial stuff, on personal finance, on mindset, on investment psychology, on I mean, like 150 books. And actually, there was not one book that gave me the answer. It was a connection between every book, like yours, it's like, yeah, it's sometimes people don't want to put the work, to actually learn.
Yeah, I love it. It's like you're having a conversation with 150 people. When you get to read these authors for $10, $15, I look at it as like, wow, you're gonna get that conversation with that author, and you might as well have it. As well, I have a bookshelf. I love learning. Great. Well, all right. So I like this perspective that you have of you balance your investments, your 401k and stocks, you're in index funds, you have some cash, which I do as well, and then you have real estate. So let's talk about your actual real estate strategy, because I think a lot of people are going to relate to the fact that you have a full-time job, you've got a family, you've got a life, you're busy, you can't look at your phone when you're working at work because you're an air traffic controller. So let's talk about your strategy to invest in real estate. Like what approach have you used in the past, and what approach do you use now to invest in real estate?
The way I think about it is like the big picture, and then I go to the big and the small. On my big picture, I think of it this way. Well, real estate is about jobs, right? If the tenant doesn't have a job, they're not going to pay the rent. So that's one. So that's the big picture for me. People need job to pay the rent. So then I ask myself, thinking 20 years from now, what are the things that are going to be here still and that are not going to be disrupted by technology? So healthcare is one, so you got healthcare, you got technology, you got, they're trying to bring manufacturing back. So I don't know how that's going to play out. That's really political. And you have like defense, air travel, all that stuff. So that's the big picture. So my strategy is to follow those big, things. And then from there, I pick the markets where I can find the technology, the healthcare, the defense, and I diversified in those markets. So, and then once I identify the markets, I go like microscopic, which neighborhood or area in the city. And then that's the way I pick the markets and where I invest in which state and all that stuff.
I love it. I love the idea of following jobs. You're really starting from your end customer, this tenant, and you're trying to make sure they're successful. You're like, I want to invest in areas where they're going to be successful, and think ahead of that on big trends like jobs, and technology is disrupting so many businesses. And I've learned something lately. I am overexposed, and deliberately, but it's been how I grew my wealth, was in a college town. Like I'm in a college town where there's one factory in town. That's the university. And it's a calculated bet. I mean, I think universities, especially large public universities, are fairly safe. But you can't. Technology disrupts everything, and so even college towns, like my plan long run is not to be only in one town, and having stocks and other things to invest in diversifies me away from just this one physical location. But I love that you live in Jacksonville, but you've invested there some. You also have some in Texas, if I remember right, Dallas, Austin, some other areas.
Yeah, I invest in Jacksonville here. Why Jacksonville that I invest? Because here is a very diversified market. We have healthcare, we got defense. When I say defense, I mean the military. There's big Navy bases here, like big. Believe it or not, here in Jacksonville, they're trying to launch to do some space industry. They're trying to take an airplane and launch a rocket from here. So we got all that. In the Dallas-Fort Worth is a really, really mature market, and you got a lot of financials and a lot of things going on in Dallas-Fort Worth. Austin area, what I can say, that's the second Silicon Valley of the nation. I'm pretty sure you have heard about the Southwest by Southwest in Austin. So that's what I choose, those markets. I have property in Orlando. Well, we have to talk about Disney World, biggest entertainment in the world. And I don't know if I put it there, but also I have some property in Minnesota. So you're going to go, what? Minnesota? But I have property in Rochester, Minnesota. Do you know what is in Rochester, Minnesota?
Well, I know 3M is near Minneapolis, but maybe it's something different. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there is a big healthcare in Rochester, Minnesota, which is called Mayo Clinic.
Ah, Mayo Clinic. Yeah, of course.
So you see, the way I think is strategically. I try to follow this stuff, like what is not going to be disrupted or what is going to be here 50 years from now. And the other way I like to think about it, because real estate is a very illiquid, like extremely illiquid asset. So I want to think about it like if I put a for sale sign in my property, I want to sell it like that. That's the way I think about it, because it's really illiquid.
Yeah, and that can be a challenge. That can also be a benefit. I found some people. I've had discussions with stock people on this too. Is that, hey, real estate's so illiquid, that means that's a negative, and it is, except for the psychology aspect. The psychology is that when people have stocks, the documentation has shown that people buy in and sell and buy and sell, and they end up not benefiting from the stock market as much as they could because they can sell it so easily. Whereas when you make an investment in real estate, you have to be deliberate. You're making a choice, and it's gonna be hard to sell that thing. So, but to your point, like if you're going to invest in real estate, why not be on the higher end of the liquidity spectrum so that you can sell a property quickly? You got a lot of buyers. And I think I'd be curious. You invest in single family houses, and I have single family houses as well. I've also got some apartments. But one of the biggest benefits of houses to me is that liquidity, that you can sell a property to a retail buyer who can get a loan. Whereas if you sell a 20 unit apartment building, that's a whole nother animal. I mean, that's a commercial buyer who's going to negotiate with you and talk you down. So is that part of your strategy of buying single family houses in those strategic locations?
Yes, it is. And exactly. That's part of my strategy, because the pool of customers that I'm going to have when I decide to sell the real estate is going to be more than 20 unit apartment. Those are going to be investors looking at that, and the appreciation is going to come from the income. So that's the way I look at it. And I have a mentor that we both know, which is called John Schwab. That guy, I mean, his story, resonated with me, and he only has single families now, but he has done like everything. And the arguments that he have for single family, I mean, are solid, because for example, he said, like, if you have a duplex and you have two people, I mean, you have two families living there, and let's say they start fighting. Now it's your problem to go and fix it, So a single family, you don't have that. Of course, you're going to have neighbors, but they're not going to be sharing a wall. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm putting a little bit more effort on the single family side right now.
Yeah, John, I actually had John on the show, on the podcast a month or two ago, and really enjoyed talking to him, and has been definitely a mentor for me as well. So one thing that, so the benefit of having single family houses, the benefit of investing in these really hot or long-term stable markets. And then I know from you go to micro locations within those markets that are very in demand, that people want to live in. So those are all positives. One of the challenges is that the numbers on the front end might not comparatively have the same income to price ratio maybe that some other lower price properties or other markets would be. So can you talk about some of the criteria? How do you evaluate the strength of an investment quantitatively on the front end, knowing that you're going for these long-term value kind of markets and properties?
Every real estate investor have to put it in context in their own lives, right? In my case, I don't need the cash flow, So then somebody's going to ask me, oh, so you're betting on equity? I am not betting on equity. But of course, once you start becoming a more and more sophisticated investor, I mean, you look at your whole portfolio, because if I'm going to go microscopic into one single unit to see how much cash flow that unit is going to spit, I mean, I can lose a lot of things. So I see my whole portfolio, and then I put it in context with my personal finances, my stage of life, my stage of wealth, where I'm in that stage right now. And then I make a decision. It's not all about the numbers. Yes, I run a spreadsheet and I use the numbers. I do a combination of the 1% rule and the IRR. And then again, with time, I have learned that the IRR method is more robust, because it's going to actually calculate what is the return of your investment and the return on your investment on every dollar that you put on that property. So I use a combination with that. and then I put it in context with where I am in my life and the money that I have. And then I make a decision. So it's not only for me, it's not only a numbers base, but I have the last property that I bought that I put on Instagram. I bought it from a piece of brand new construction. Cost me $285,000. But I bought it right there when the coronavirus hit, and the builder gave me a discount on the price. He paid all closing costs, and even he paid down the interest rate for me. But it's in an A+ market, and now I have a tenant. He paid 6 months in advance. So you see what I mean? So for me, it's not all the numbers because of my situation.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you say too, and I'm glad you brought this point up, because I talk a lot about running the numbers and actually have a course on rental property analysis. And one of the things I dug into when I was making that course, I looked at some of my own properties over the last 10 to 12 years, and so many real estate investors, and I've been caught in this trap as well, only think about one way of getting a return on a rental property. And that one way is the income you get from the net income after you pay all your expenses today. So that net rent after you pay all your expenses. And while that's a very important number, like I always look at that number, and I think cash on cash return is important. It's a form of discipline. But when I've looked at my total return over the long run, when I look at the internal rate of return, the IRR, I make a lot more of my money on quality properties from the growth of my income, the pay down of the principal on the loan, and especially when you're using leverage. If you're using a 3 or 4% interest rate and you have the benefit of the property going up, even if it's 3% per year, 4% per year, you make a lot of your returns. Sometimes for me, it's been 60, 70% of my total return has come from that growth of the income compared to just the cash flow. So like, I'm big on cash flow. I live off the cash flow. But what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're in the growth phase right now. You're still making money from your job. Your goal is 5 or 10 years from now, or whenever you're going to need it, to have this nest egg grow into a bigger nest egg so that you can then reallocate that money as you need to make income. Like you could always sell the property. You could sell it and turn it into an income property later on. Is that how you're thinking about it? You're kind of delaying. The numbers are still important, but the numbers 5 years from now are more important than the numbers right now.
Exactly. That's the way I'm making my investments decisions right now. Like I'll make an investment right now, but I'm thinking what that investment is how it's gonna perform 5-10 years from now. Because remember what I said, I'm already eligible in 7 years. That's to putting everything in context in my situation. So every listener out there needs to put this in context in their life. Because there is a lot of people, a lot of school of thoughts, that they worship in the cash flow altar. It's all about cash flow. Real estate is more than cash flow. I mean, talk about tax benefits, tax losses that you can drag in your Schedule E 20 years from now. I mean, it's so much stuff that you can use to create wealth with real estate. So that's the way I'm seeing.
We go back to learning. That's where the books come in, right?
It's like the 150 books,
Yeah, you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I love it. I'm still learning so much today. I've been reading books 18 years. And I'm like, every day I'm like, oh, wow, there's another lesson. It's just a never ending process. So there's one other thing I wanted to talk about related to your real estate portfolio is that going back, you have a day job, you're busy, you have a family. How do you actually implement some of these strategies? Because you only have so much of Jay's time and energy and effort. Like how do you actually buy these properties, especially when they're long distance?
Yeah. The buying aspect of it, I already know which property I want and which markets I want. So that is already is a decision made for me that I have studied, and I still actually study every day. The way I manage the properties, for the out-of-state properties, I have property managers that I keep in contact with. They have become good friends, so they're pretty much taking care of those properties as if I were there. Here, the one in Jacksonville, Orlando, I manage those myself. But then again, those properties are already Class A in Class A neighborhoods, so the tenants are more easy to manage, like way easy to manage. So I pretty manage those properties through text messages, to tell you the truth. So that's the way I do it. The way I find the properties is like, since I already know the markets, sometimes I build relationships in those markets, and sometimes I look for I look at everything: foreclosures, new construction, resale. So that's the way I find, the properties, and I identify the neighborhood and I go there. I like target it. I'm determined. I want in this street, in this neighborhood, boom, and then I find somebody.
Yeah, I found the same thing that so many people, a lot of people ask me, how do you find good deals? And I think not enough of them start where you are starting. Like if you were focused on one particular market and then within that market, one particular neighborhood and one particular type of house, like you're like, I want a single family house in the Dallas Fort Worth area in this neighborhood and this price range. Then you start looking for deals. And it's like a radar for traffic control. The radar starts pinging. You start hearing it. There it is. That's where I need to go. And it's much easier to find when you're focused. Whereas if you're just like, I'll take any deal anywhere, I don't care as long as it's a deal, it doesn't work, does it?
Doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. It's more of a hassle, trying to find a good deal and all that stuff. And I already also learned that, every time I am not going to hit a home run. I wish I can hit a home run every time, but sometimes it's a single or a double, So I have learned from Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett that sometimes a reasonable deal is much better than anything, because people sometimes focus, oh my God, instead of doing 15%, I'm going to do 14% of return. I was like, come on, dude, 14%, look at the big, so that's the way I see it, and as of today, I have won every time.
Well, I find your perspective very refreshing, and just I'm a fellow learner, so I really appreciate your desire to keep learning and studying your market and kind of being a scientist almost, analyzing this. And so, thank you for your feedback on this. I guess to close, do you have any final tips? I always ask our guests this. If you're thinking about somebody who is trying to achieve financial independence, maybe they're early on in their journey, are there any tips or advice you would give them that would help them? Maybe your best tips on how they might approach this journey of financial independence?
Well, a mistake that I did that I don't want anybody to go through, like for example, my first deal was live and flip, and I did a house hacking. So I brought a roommate there, and that's the way my first deal, and it went great. I made like $45,000. I thought I knew everything. Then comes my second deal. That was a big learning experience, and that was back in 2006 when the real estate market was really high. So I went with the market and the fear of missing out. I bought a property, I overpaid for it, and now I'm stuck with it. So that thing is like the one thing that I want people to learn is like, you need to learn at least the basics. You need to have clarity. What do you want to achieve? And go from there, and learn, read and learn. And there is no one book that is going to give you the answer. I remember when back in the day, I searched online trying to put my thoughts together, and hey, I came across with Arian, So Arian has been a great mentor, a great friend. And, we chat and all that stuff. So that's the way, sometimes you learn.
Yeah. And I'll put a link to I did a podcast interview with Arian as well. That was very popular on the blueprint for financial independence. He's at the investingarchitect.com. So he's a fellow friend for both of us, and I'll put a link to him. So we share a lot of friends and insights and books we've read. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, John Schaub. These are all, I'm nodding my head on all of them saying, yep, those are Pete Fortunato. Absolutely. So it's been a lot of fun talking, Jay. I'm going to put a link to all of your kind of contacts where people can get in touch, but where can you tell people where they can stay in touch with you and follow you along online?
Yeah, I'm really active on Instagram. So they can follow me, in Instagram, ask me questions. My DMs are always open. Being Determined or beingdetermined.com. They can go there. They can find me. They can read my stuff.
I highly recommend it. It's one of those, I've really come to love Instagram and just the sharing and generosity that some people have. And his page is one of those where if you just follow along on your page, you're going to learn, you're going to be inspired, you're going to see behind the scenes details. So highly recommend Jay's Instagram page.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here, Jay. Really appreciate it. Keep those planes flying in order up in the sky for us. I haven't flown in a while, but I feel better. Yeah, and SpaceX as well. We were nerding out before the call, keeping those rockets from hitting planes. And I feel a lot better now that when I fly to Florida, I'm going to know who's behind those controls now that I've talked to you.
If you ever come to Florida, I'll take you there so I can give you a tour.
Oh, I'm taking you up on that. I'll love it. All right. Sounds good.
All right, man.
Have a good one. If you like the show, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my free email newsletter at coachcarson.com/REI toolkit. In addition to weekly updates, articles, and behind-the-scenes tips from me, my email newsletter subscribers get my real estate investing toolkit, which includes a property closing checklist that I actually use when I buy properties, a real estate deal worksheet, a tenant screening criteria checklist, and other spreadsheets and goodies that will help you on your journey to financial independence using real estate. You can get it all for free at coachcarson.com/REI toolkit. I also want to take this time to thank some people behind the scenes who make this podcast possible each and every week. This includes my podcast editor extraordinaire, Michael Wynn, my amazing virtual assistant, Megan Thompson, my wife, Carrie, who helps me behind the scenes and is my partner here at Coach Carson. And of course, thank you to all of you, the listeners of this show who make everything possible. This show exists for you. It exists because of you. And I really appreciate you being here for another episode. Everything I've shared with you in this episode has been for general education purposes. I have not considered your specific situation or risks. Before buying your own investments, be sure to consult a financial, real estate, and/or a legal professional. Until next time, I'm Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this is a show all about helping you get out of the financial grind so you can do more of what matters. See you next time.